And I would love to bring on our next guest. Her name is Lauren, and she's calling all the way from Panama. And per her Instagram, she's a gringa in Panama, and she helps you challenge the status quo to live life on your own terms. And she's all about freedom lifestyle. How are you, Lauren?
Hello, I am good. I'm so excited to be here. It's finally here.
I know, I'm so excited to have you. I saw you the other day, guys. We were chatting on Instagram, and she was chatting with me through her like rooftop pool in Panama City. Is that a rooftop pool? Was I right with that?
It is. It's funny because it's a rooftop pool, but it's actually a lot lower than my apartment is. So we're on the 41st floor and that pool is on the 8th floor. So I always say like, oh, I'm going up to the pool, and then I have to recalibrate. I'm like, oh, I'm actually going down because I live so high up.
That's so cool. And guys, before we jump into our talk today, this is going to be about designing your freedom lifestyle. Lauren is all about creating like that picture perfect life that you want. Everybody's life is different. And a lot of people keep asking on this summit, like, where do you recommend, what cities? But it really depends first on what kind of life you want to create. And so she's an expert on helping you create that life. So she's actually a transformational coach. She's a serial expat, an avid traveler. And to kind of give you guys a little bit of background, she made the craziest decision of her life, where she abandoned her dream opportunity at a fashion magazine in New York and instead booked a one-way ticket to Spain. And she was just like you guys probably are. She was super terrified. She had no idea what she was doing or what she wanted. And then living and traveling abroad, like outside of her comfort zone, has really shaped her to where she's at now, and as well as the people that she helps. So basically she gave herself like a clean slate and a reset button, so that she was living outside of like everybody else's rules, everybody else's expectations, standards, and she broke the mold. And she's kind of taking a stand for us today to really show you guys, you can become the person you want to be, and you can live the life that you really want. So thank you so much for being here, Lauren. And yeah, tell us how you initially started this journey.
Well, first of all, thank you. That was such a beautiful intro. How I started this journey, it's long version or short version. I'll go with the short version, but I guess basically my parents are big travelers. So I've been traveling since before I could walk. I always say, you know, my parents had me in one of those like carriers where I was just kind of hanging out there and traveling around with them. And from the time I was really young, so I'm an only child, and I had an imaginary friend whose name was England, and she was from London, go figure. And I used to make my mom like set a spot at the table for her. And I just always knew that these lands that were far away, like these countries, were super interesting to me. And I just, from the time I was really little, always knew that I wanted to live abroad. I used to tell people in elementary school that I would be going to college at Oxford, which is hysterical. It didn't happen, but it's just been like the seed that was planted in me from so young. And I knew that I wanted to study abroad. So I studied abroad during school. And then from there, it was really just, I guess, a slippery slope of, wanting to explore so many different places. And Spain is a really special place for me, but I've been living abroad for 10 years and counting now, and have lived in Chile and Spain and Liechtenstein, and most recently Panama, which we just moved here a few months ago. So it's been quite a long journey, since I was really young, but I still often feel like I'm just getting started.
I love that. So wait a second. How has it been that you decided to move to Panama? So you were kind of over in Europe. What made you want to go to Panama? It's very interesting.
Yeah, so it's funny. This move has been the first move that I haven't done because I wanted to. And so let me explain that. It's, every time I've moved abroad, it's because I wanted to. It's because I wanted to explore a new place, because I wanted to start over. I wanted to learn a language. It was always something that I wanted to do. This move is actually for my partner's job. So I met my partner when I was down living in Chile. He's Venezuelan, and we moved back to Spain together. And he gets transferred every 2 to 3 years for work to a new market. And it just happened that this was, where they placed him this time. So Panama, this is like the first time that I moved because of other circumstances, other than just wanting to, do it and making it happen. It was something that kind of happened for me. I'm using the for me rather than to me, because I've been reframing that myself as well.
Yes, that's so important, because sometimes we think these circumstances happen and we kind of put ourselves as the victim, but we could take ourselves out of that and look at it from a different lens.
Yeah. And I don't mean to say that, listen, I love Panama. We're very new here. For me, it was very much, though, Spain is my happy place. It's my special place. I spent so many years trying to get back to Spain. And then we were in Spain for 3 years. And then after those 3 years, it was like, hey, guess what? We're moving you again. So it kind of this, uprooting of our lives, and we're starting over again in Panama. And it's just now starting to feel like home. We've only been here for 4 or 5 months. So, it's been a lot of practicing what I preach for the past few months, and really, taking the work that I do with other expats when they're in these moves and applying it to my own situation.
Oh my gosh. Wait, so tell us more about that. What is the practices and what do you help your clients with, and who are your clients? I'm super curious.
Yeah. So it's so broad, so it can be hard to boil it down into just one thing. But I mean, the main thing, you summed it up beautifully, that I really help people with is designing their freedom lifestyle. And that looks different for everyone. That doesn't always mean moving abroad. A lot of the times it does. It could also just mean creating more freedom and flexibility. So, wanting to travel long-term, getting a remote job so that you're not tied down to one place, even just getting a new job and having, a better experience, more fulfillment, being happier at work. So it does look a little bit different for everyone. But what I usually do with my clients, I call it like my CMA method: clarity, mindset, and action, which are the 3 pillars that everything I do rests on. So that first piece is really getting clear on what you want your experience to look like, what you want your life to look like, what your goals are. We zoom out a little bit. And then once we get really clear on, what that bigger picture is, we can zoom in and actually talk about the actionable steps to make the thing happen. So that's that action piece. And the mindset is the piece that ties it all together. I always say that's the most important. A lot of the times we skip over that type of work, but that's the motivation. That's being able to, get back up when, as Allison just so beautifully said, what things are going to happen. And you need to be able to get back on the horse when you get thrown off, and, not let those bumps in the road mean that it's the end of the road, but just a detour. So the work I do with clients, it looks a little bit different for everyone, but those are those 3 pillars: that clarity, mindset, and action, that we always come back to, because those are just the 3 things that I've seen always come up. And if we focus on those 3, whatever it is that you're working towards, we'll eventually get there.
Wow, that's so cool. So tell me, when you work with people that want to move abroad, what are like the biggest things? What are the biggest fears? What are the biggest I guess misconceptions that are going through their minds? And then what do you normally recommend for people to do to kind of get over that?
Okay. So 2-part question. What are the biggest fears or misconceptions? And then how do people get over that? Well, actually, it's funny. I have my, I guess, like mouse pad. I don't have a mouse pad yet. And I have this book here, just moving my mouse, called Hello Fears. This is one of my favorite books, and that's because fear is like one of my favorite topics, which can kind of sound a little bit interesting, but I love to dig into fear because that's often the thing that holds us back the most, or gets in the way of us making the changes that we want to make. And I love the way that Michelle breaks down fears, because she says that there's really only 7 fears that all of the fears that we have anchor into. And so those are pain, danger, embarrassment, rejection, loneliness, control or lack of control, and disgust. Wow. So it's these 7 fears that really, whatever comes up with my clients, more often than not, you can anchor them into one of those 7 in some way, shape, or form. So a lot of the times it's, that first initial fear is over even just making the move, doing it. Am I going to be able to do this? You know, like there's so much that goes into it, so many logistics. How am I going to make this possible? And it's like this expansive fear of just where do I even start, you know? And a lot of the times there's just so much that goes into it. People just don't even know what that first step is. So the way that we get over that is, again, really like big picture vision and then zooming in. What is just the one thing that you can do that's going to have the biggest impact right now? You know, so if you're starting at the very beginning, that could be like exploring locations. What types of visa options do I have? What are my legal options for living abroad? And we explore that together. And once we get a little bit further down the line, when we're actually into making that move, a lot of fears come up. It's, you know, once we've figured out how they're actually going to do it, there's still more fears that come up. What if I get there and I don't meet anyone? I have no friends. What if everyone back home forgets about me? And, you know, then I have no friends abroad and no friends or family back home. And there's just so much that comes up. Homesickness. How am I going to figure out if I don't know the language, how to even like buy groceries, you know? So it's a lot of fears that come up, but again, they all stem back into those 7. So the way that I really like to approach fear is, first of all, getting really clear around what you are actually afraid of. Because a lot of the times we think we're scared of something, but if we peel those layers back, like my favorite question is, why does that scare you? Why does that scare you? Okay, why does that scare you? And I just keep asking that question until we get to the root of like what that actual fear is, you know, because a lot of the times it's not what's on the surface level, there's something deeper.
Yeah.
Then we can acknowledge that, explore it, and talk about real ways to overcome it. And more than overcome it, it's more just knowing that that fear can exist. What do you want to do with it? You know, so like say you're in the driver's seat and fear's in the back trying to be that backseat driver. And you get to say to fear, like, okay, I'm going to listen to you for a little while because it actually seems like you know what you're talking about. And maybe I want to take that detour. Or you get to say, you know what, shut up. You're sitting in the back seat. I'm in the driver's seat and you're not going to drive this car right now. I get to drive it and you can come along, but you're not going to control me, you know? So it's a lot of like working with analogies, working with, you know, talking about not necessarily making that fear go away, but how can we still move forward even if it's going to be there?
Oh, I love that. This is so, it's deeper than what people think. And guys, if you think that there's not going to be roadblocks and maybe your fears making you want to check out, I mean, that really happens. And I can just give an example. Lauren, I'm sure you probably have examples because you've moved like 4 or 5 times, like you've said, to different countries, but like we just made this move. We're doing a 5-month digital nomad journey. And we decided to do it with a month's notice. So I had to get my apartment subleased. It was also a challenge though. I set a really stretchy goal because I wanted to prove that this is possible for people. And it was very stressful. I could have thrown the towel in. I could have given up multiple times because I was posting in groups. I was chatting with friends, trying to get the apartment subleased. And I wasn't getting any bites. And then randomly on a Sunday, when I decided to accept that things are going to happen the way they're going to happen, it all worked out. And so I wonder, do you ever work with that too? Of like, you know, we're gripping at something so much and we're putting so much attention on it, thinking it's not going to work out. But then once we just like release control, everything ends up working out. Oh, are you muted? Oh. Oops. Okay, yeah. You can't press mute because
Sorry, I will not. I muted myself to take a sip of water, but now I know. Okay, so yeah, so the way I really like to think about this, and actually another coach friend of mine the other day used this analogy and I loved it because I work with the 80-20 rule a lot, but I had never really thought about it in this way. And so the 80-20 rule really talks about this desire we have to like control outcomes and to really be on top of everything. And when we look at the 80-20 rule in this circumstance, what we see is like 80% of what we're doing, we can control. We have control over it. It's the behaviors, the actions, the habits, the things that we're actually doing. That 20% is like the universe magic, that right place at the right time, that uncontrollable piece that also just has so much to do with your journey, but we can't control it. we just don't have control over it. We don't know when it's going to happen. We don't know once we put in our visa application if the visa is going to be approved. We don't know when we move abroad if we're going to meet people or make friends right away. We cannot control that 20%. When we fixate on that 20%, that's when we feel stuck, confused, frustrated, scared, because we just can't control it. And often a lot of the fear that we have is around that unknown, that piece that we just don't know what's going to happen. So what I do a lot of the times with my clients is we bring it back around to that 80%, because that 80% means if we're focused there, if we're focused on what we can actually do, what's within our power, we can make sure that we're in the right mindset and the most prepared possible for when that 20% happens. So when you're in the right place at the right time, when your visa gets approved or rejected, because again, it's just, we don't know, but what we can do is prepare ourselves for whatever comes next. So it also has a lot to do with this idea of focusing on either intentions or expectations, focusing on the now and the present, or that attachment to outcome. So a lot of this, it's that mindset piece that I said is just so important, because if we ignore that piece, that's when a lot of times we can just feel like we're totally untethered because we're focused on all these things that we just really have no control over.
Oh my gosh, I love this talk. And people are saying, love this discussion. It's so important, guys. I know we've been talking on some of the other chats about, visas and all that. And I think we've gotten a lot of information about that, but this is a really important piece that you need support if you've never done this before. And so we're happy to share our insights and also be here for you guys. Like, we've done it multiple times, and Lauren has done it multiple times. So I have a question from Tiana. Hey, Lauren, do you work with couples or each person individually?
Yeah, so I have worked with couples in the past, actually. I've worked with people, all over, from like recent graduates. So we're talking 21, 22 years old, all the way up into one of my recent clients was in her early 60s and planning her retirement actually abroad in Portugal. So I was really loving that talk when I jumped on as well, because that is something that comes up a lot these days. So yeah, it's like a little bit of the tactical, and then obviously the space that I'm talking about, this mindset space, this like fear-based space, is where I really love to like dance, I guess, with my clients, because the tactical piece, it's very important. It's very important to have someone that can help you with all of that. And it's all online. We can go to Google, we can look up the steps for a visa, we can look up what visas are available to us. We can do that research and find this information. It's still difficult. It's still hard. We can still use support there. And it's this other piece that it's like, you can't just Google, like, I was about to say a bad word. I don't know if I can do that, but like, I'm scared shitless now. Like, what do I do? And it's like that piece that we can really use support around. And I wish I had that type of support, because, back when I was younger, it was more just like, okay, yeah, I'm going to move abroad. We'll see what happens. And as I say now, it's kind of like each time I do it, it actually gets a little bit more complicated. The tactical part is okay for me now, but it's more like every time I move now, I'm older and older, and it's harder to make friends. I have more responsibilities. There's more things on my mind for every time I make this move. So it's interesting, because as I go through this myself over and over and over again, I'm gaining the tools to help people at different stages in their lives as they're going through it. And it's like everyone has so many different fears, so many different circumstances. But when we're actually looking at it from a big picture perspective, it's all the same a lot of the time. So does that answer your question? I know it was more just for couples, but yes, I have worked with couples. Yeah. It's a little bit more complicated because there's often different expectations there for each. So it's a lot of, work of communication as well, with also me getting really clear on what they both want the experience to look like together, and then what each of their experiences and the expectations for that look like. So we can make sure that they're also communicating that to each other.
Oh, I love that. Oh my gosh, this is a great talk. And I've actually responded to you, Tiana. So it's Tiana Jackson. Lauren, and
oh, awesome.
I've dropped the free gift that Lauren is offering for you guys. So basically only until the end of August, she is doing a free gift, which is a 30-minute coaching session. So I'm sure, Tiana, you might want to just book that so that you guys can go more in depth. because it's kind of hard to kind of talk about, personally the situation, but you guys will definitely have time to do that through that call. So I'll put it again in the chat so everybody has it. There it is. Cool.
Yeah. And then just to little clarification there too, these are while supplies last, I guess. Obviously I'm one person and I have limited time, so it's through the end of August, but it's really kind of like a first come first serve thing. I'm going to try to do a few each week, so if you're interested in that, reach out, let me know, or you can just go ahead and book it there. But yeah, I'm super excited to have these like strategy sessions with people, and just want to put it out there that they are limited.
Perfect. Yeah, no, I appreciate you opening up your schedule for this. Super, super cool of you. Okay, another question. Can we kind of shift to how is it? Because there are some people that want to move to Panama and thinking about Latin America. Can you guys put me in the chat if you are thinking about moving to Panama or Latin America? And if so, where? How is it as an American in Panama?
Yeah. So again, it's, we're still pretty new here. So I'm still kind of figuring all of that out. There's kind of like an interesting dynamic, at least here in Panama City, that I'm still navigating, where this is such an international city because a lot of multinational organizations and companies have their Latin American hubs here. So they bring in people from all over the world. And it's kind of created this, divide, I think, between the expats and locals. And there's some organizations now that are trying to, bridge that divide, bridge that gap. Because I work from home, I don't, have an office that I go to all the time. And now that I'm starting to feel at home, trying to figure out, how do I get to know the locals? Like, where do I meet people that are actually from here and not just, all of the other people that are living here because of their circumstances or because they wanted to move to Panama. That being said, I'm loving it so far. This was one move that I didn't prep for a lot beforehand, which is very unlike me. I usually do all the research, know everything ahead of time. And this time, because it just feels like it all happened so fast, I've kind of just been like going with it as things come. Living in Latin America, it's so different from living in Europe. And this is now my second time actually living in Latin America. Being here, I really love taking advantage of all that like nature travel, really going. I just went for a sunrise hike yesterday where we got picked up at 2 a.m. and drove 3 hours to climb a mountain, at 5 a.m. and then had the sunrise there. And it's just moments like that here in Latin America. It's just these really magical moments that you can get them in Europe too, but I feel like in Europe, it's a lot more city oriented. You're going to these places to really learn about the culture, try the food, do the walking tours. And here in Latin America, there's a lot of that too. But for me, the best part of living here is that nature piece, the beaches, the mountains, the rainforests. It's, there's just so much variety to choose from.
Amazing. Oh, I've heard that too about Latin America, is you can find a little bit more of that solitude, the nature. So thanks for those insights. And let's open it up for questions, guys. So like anything you have about, fears, the transition, living in Latin America. I mean, feel free to drop your questions in the chat. Let's see. Did you see any?
My gosh, I can't believe it's already 58. Where does the time go?
Diana asks, would you help a person find an extended stay abroad, or is it limited to people who want to permanently move abroad?
Yeah. So again, it's actually, I don't even only work with people who want to move abroad. So I do work with a lot of people who want to move abroad, but that being said, I work with people to design their freedom lifestyle, whatever that means to them. So it's different for everyone, whether you want to travel, kind of embrace like that digital nomad lifestyle, which I've also done, move abroad. I even work with people who live in the States and want a new job, but a new job that, provides more flexibility, more opportunities for them to travel or, work from home. So it really looks different for everyone. And then moving abroad just happens to be a space that I like to dabble in with my clients, because it's also, something that I'm super familiar with myself.
Wow. Now, I wanted to ask you this question because you're kind of similar to our second speaker, Kat, where she's lived all over. She lives in Paris right now, but she's also lived in Colombia and Panama. So she's from Live and Invest Overseas. I'm sure you've heard of it.
Yeah.
And they're headquartered in Panama. what is the comparison? Like, how would you differentiate between living in Latin America versus EU? I know you said you're a Spain lover. You have to also tell me where you lived in Spain.
I was in Madrid.
Okay, got it. Cool.
Yeah, like 6 years on and off in Madrid. Wow, it's a really hard question to answer because every European country and city is so different. And I've found the same in Latin America. Like my experience living in Santiago was so different from my experience living now in Panama. So it's a hard question to answer at like a granular level, I guess, but Europe, it's a very different feel as far as being able to kind of just travel around with budget flights to other countries. The public transportation is often really great, so you can get around easily and pretty affordably. Here in Latin America, it's a little bit different. The public transportation isn't usually as robust. It's the distances are really far. So even to fly from Panama to Chile, I mean, that's like flying from New York to California. It's not hopping on a plane and jumping from Spain to France, which you can be there in, an hour and a half. Here, it's multiple hours on a flight. So it's unique in the way that I think it causes you in Latin America to explore where you live a little bit more. Like I always love to really explore the country that I'm living in rather than jumping around as much like in Europe. And I'm just getting started here in Panama, but already I feel like we've done some pretty amazing trips here. So yeah, it's a little bit different everywhere. I don't know if that answers your question because it's a very big question.
Yeah, I mean, even like, what about the public services, the healthcare system? Because I know what people love about Europe is that public piece of it. Is that also something that's great in Panama?
So it's a little bit different here in Panama. So life in Panama is pretty expensive, I will say. It's my cost of living is higher here than it was in Spain. So it's an interesting, you wouldn't necessarily think that. The one thing that was a lot more expensive in Spain, I would say, was the apartments. So rent. Here in Panama, rent is fairly reasonable. Everything else is so expensive. I pay triple here in groceries what I did in Spain. Healthcare is a lot more expensive here as well. So just as an example, I had such a culture shock moment the other day. I went to get some allergy pills from the pharmacy here, and they handed me a box and said $3.80. And I was like, great, this is amazing. Thinking back to Spain, where in Spain, almost any medicine you buy is going to be under 10 euros. It's very regulated and everything's super affordable. Well, in, relation, in Spain compared to the US at least. And so I went to pay for my allergy pills and they rang it up and it was over $40. And I was looking at them, they just told me $3.80 back there. And the woman was so cute. She said in Spanish, no, my queen, here we pay by pill. So that was the cost per pill was $3.80, not for the box. And it was just such a culture shock moment for me. I was like, wow, I've never paid per pill before. Not even in the States, you usually pay for like a little plastic container or a whole box of pills. So it's things like that we're still navigating and getting used to. But yeah, that piece of like healthcare, transportation, that tends to be a bit more expensive over here.
Okay. But also it's because you live in Panama City, right? So it's a little bit
Panama in general is pretty expensive, but Panama City I think definitely has higher prices than some of the smaller cities. But again, it's a lot's imported here. They don't have as much of a local cultivation of things, so almost everything is being brought in from outside, which there's a lot of taxes on things. That's another thing that's different, where in Europe the tax is included in the things that you're buying. Here, like the States, they add the tax on top. So when you go to pay for something, that was another little culture shock moment for me. In Spain, you're paying exactly what you have on the price tag is what you're paying. And here they have that sales tax added on.
Wow. Well, thank you for answering all these questions. Just to let you know, Amalia, our next speaker, we're just running 2 minutes late, so we will just wrap it up right now. Jade, I think I'm going to get your question answered on the next panel because we're going to dive into Spain and it's going to be amazing. And I think Lauren would also love that chat too, because Amalia is calling from Valencia region.
I'm definitely going to stick around for that. I'm excited.
Yeah. And then Kelly, this is the last question. What do you think of Puerto Armuelles? I don't know if you know of that. She says she's a single woman, 58. Puerto Armuelles?
Is that in Panama? I actually don't know. I'm going to copy that over and look it up. I have to say, I'm actually not familiar with Puerto Rico, but I'll look it up. And Kelly, if you want to drop your email in a private chat to me, I'm happy to look into that and get back to you.
Yeah. And then again, guys, she only has a couple spots for the free call. So I'm going to put that one more time. And Lauren, it was so great to have you. Thank you
so much.
And I think a lot of people really appreciated this panel. And I'd love to introduce you to our next speaker, Amalia. Let me bring Amalia on. Hold on really quick. And guys, if you guys can please help thank me in the chat, give her an invisible round of applause. I think this was a really awesome panel here. Oh, wait, I was supposed to bring both of you guys on. Hold up. I pressed the wrong button.
Hi, Lauren.
Wait, there you guys are. How are you, Amalia?
Doing great. Doing wonderful. Yes, calling in from Spain. And Lauren, lovely to meet you over in Panama.
Lovely to meet you. We were just in the same country, but I recently moved. So I'm excited. I'm going to stick around and listen to this. I'm excited to hear it. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you, Lauren. And hopefully I'll get to meet you. I am planning a trip to Panama, so hopefully you're there, but it probably will be next year.
Definitely keep me updated. I'll be here, but we'll see if I'm here at the moment.
And if you're ever in Spain, let me know.
Oh, I'll be back in September, so I'm there very often.
Okay, cool. Well, good to see you.